Oh my god, did this year ever sneak up on me? Really big year for me. I finally moved out of my parents' house. I've been out on my own for the very first time. I invested in a brand new office, a brand new set. Sorry if that was jarring, clicking on a video one day and the way it looks is just different for the rest of the time. But anyway, despite all the craziness of figuring out how the hell adult life works, I did manage to play a decent amount of stuff over the past year. Ooh, Outer Wilds got the nice spicy expansion, very eerie. Really not sure if it's gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but I thought it was a very magical extra piece to that puzzle, despite how much it kind of really tested my patience. Oh my. Best game ever made, why haven't you played it yet? What else? Finally tried out Disco Elysium. Feel like that's the first game I ever played that like really truly feels like the perfect translation of what you'd expect from like a real tabletop RPG with a DM. Big recommend to role-playing fans. That game is hilarious and incredible. Biomutant finally came out. I was following that thing for years. You guys know I love those weirdo games from smaller teams, especially if you can play as like a funny little raccoon guy. Everything about this felt like what I loved from those old PS2 years, and yeah, it definitely does feel like a PS2 game, and I do mean that in the most earnest way. Like, I'm not trying to insult it. Like, the gameplay is really repetitive, the visuals are not very polished, and there's way more systems than the game ever needs. But at the end of the day, I'm still a funny raccoon guy with a super gun scavenging a post-apocalyptic world, staring in the distance at faint reminders of what was once here. It's charming as hell. If you can get past all of the clunk and the glitches and bad design, it's a pretty fun game. Balan Wonderworld sucked super ass. Oh my god, it is so strange remembering that there was this short period of time where people were actually like kind of excited about this game, but being somebody who's played a bunch of those old crappy platformers and I kind of know what to look for, kinda had a sinking feeling about it from the start. I mean, the moment the trailer said 80 different costumes, all with their own unique abilities, I was not buying that they could do that in a way that wasn't repetitive or really mind-numbing, and unfortunately, my sinking suspicion was correct. I really wanted to be wrong, but I guess I wasn't. You think that would have stopped me from buying it and playing it, but I still did. I played Axiom Verge 2. Ooh, that was a really unexpected sequel, and the shift on focus from weapon arsenal to focus on movement was a really cool move. It made the game feel really new and different from the first one, and I'm also beginning to realize that I never really hated Metroidvanias as much as I just needed to find ones where I enjoyed moving the character. So that was a really nice surprise that it took that direction. If your favorite part of Metroidvanias is unlocking cool new moves to just maneuver yourself around the map, Axiom Verge 2 is something you gotta play. Don't let it go under the radar.
You can jump out of the ledge grab. This game rules.
Monkey Ball got a super solid collection finally, but honestly, I didn't really care by the time they did because I've just been playing Rolled Out this whole time. It is an awesome Monkey Ball-like indie game that's in early access, and it even has community support with custom levels and stuff. If you want more Monkey Ball, just play Rolled Out. It's on Steam. I was really surprised by how freaking good that new Pokemon Snap was. I feel like the quality of Pokemon games has just been kind of like a little all over the place these days, so you don't really know what to expect. Like, I was kind of half thinking it might have just been a nostalgic cash grab, but now that I played it, no, I really think it is one of those few times that it actually does capture the magic of the original and then expands it into something like really, really cool and modern. Solar Ash is pretty cool. Those visuals are sick as hell, and the gameplay is fast and fierce. Pretty challenging too. Definitely got to play more of that. And you know, sometimes I play some old games too, and my girlfriend finally made me play Alice Madness Returns for the first time. She couldn't believe that I never played it before, but not before I made her painfully watch me play the original, which it also came with. Ooh, this old ass clunky bullshit tank control shit, I'm into this. But then after like an hour, then we actually played the newer one, and I thought it held up like really well. The combat is incredibly satisfying, the platforming is weirdly cool. I really want to review these games someday. I think both of them really seem like something I talk about, even though they're both like really different. As you can tell, I'm not one for mobile games at all, but for some weird reason, I got into old school RuneScape when I found out it had an app. I've bounced off of this game so many times as a kid and a teenager, but I'm realizing now that it was because the grindy nature of RuneScape didn't really make much sense to me at a computer desk. Now on a phone, that makes sense. Whenever I get a spare moment, I'm always upping that mining skill. Still on that Risk of Rain 2 grind, oh my god, I don't think I have a better multiplayer game than that thing. Every single time I'm with a friend or my partner, we're just like, hey, we want to play something together. Just do a couple of Risk of Rain runs, and before you know it's
4 in the morning.
What other old stuff that but Dark Souls 2, I am now all caught up on the Dark Souls series. I put this one off for a while because it's the one everyone says sucks, and I see why people think that, but I do think there are some really cool things about it. Some of the enemies are really cool. I loved Majula, probably my favorite hub area in any of the Souls games. I really don't think there's a type of game I've turned around on harder than Souls games. Like, I just think as I get older, I'm more so looking for those games with the challenging and deliberate kind of gameplay. So I've been poking at these kinds of games, and they're really appealing to me now. Mortal Shell is one I poked at a couple of times. Surprisingly good. The hardened ability to tank one hit mid-swing. Really cool mechanic. Probably won't finish it, it was just free on PS Plus, but there's another cool one. It's also hard to care when Elden Ring's coming out so soon. I am unbelievably stoked for that. At least I've got that Demon Souls remake to mull me over until then. I couldn't believe my luck grabbing that PS5 during Black Friday. The speed this thing loads some games at is just nuts! But while the ray tracing and loading is nice, this is the first generation where the upgrade really felt a lot more like a luxury than a necessity. We hit super graphics already, and it's looking like stuff's gonna be cross-gen for a while because of that, so I really wouldn't worry too much about grabbing one of these things until there's actually some games on it. Oh yeah, and I beat every single Jimmy Neutron game. Wonder how many people can say that. There's some old stuff, some new stuff, but now we're talking my 10 best. These are the 10 games I'm gonna remember from 2021. So let's get on with it already. These are the 10 raddest games I played this past year. Fixed angle survival horror games are one of my favorite things ever. There's just something about bringing me somewhere through the lens of carefully painted angles that I really miss. Tormented Souls recaptures that classic horror magic and even streamlines a number of things in the process. Cryptic puzzles challenge you with clues and riddles, items hide mechanisms that point you in the right direction, and the combat is simple and clunky, with the focus being on the resource management instead of the action. Top it off with a spooky soundtrack, a killer atmosphere, and totally competent scares that don't rely on jumps, and you've got a delicious homage to the olden days of Resident Evil and Silent Hill. I wouldn't call it a must-play for all horror fans, as the style only makes it really appealing to people that miss this kind of horror game, but if you're like me, and that is a good way to describe you, Tormented Souls is exactly what you're looking for. Giving budgets to actually creative studios is probably the only good thing EA Games has done in 100 years. Hazelight Studios' story-driven co-op games are some of the most inventive high-budget experiences I've ever had. The ending to A Way Out swept me off my freaking feet, so I knew I had to play their new game It Takes Two, this cooperative platformer that has you and a buddy shooting and grooving and learning the meaning of love. Prepare for an emotional roller coaster, complete with action and puzzles that'll have some really cool back and forths between you and your partner. I played through it with my girlfriend, and I think I can easily say the game is best enjoyed with a romantic partner. It is such a sweet and endearing experience. The way each level is based on some sort of problem the couple failed to overcome together is so clever, from things as small as failing to fix the vacuum to things like learning how to be better parents. I know you can never bring up these games without bringing up Joseph Fares, but he's probably the most legit dude I've ever seen in my life. Even in interviews, he just does not give a shit at all.
You're a fucking legend, Tim. You can say whatever the you want. What do you mean?
Yet playing something as wholesome and magical as this, it kind of goes to show that in spite of how homogenized the AAA scene has been getting, in some places we do still have genuine creative minds that want to push the envelope forward. So thank you, Hazelight. I can't wait to see what's next. The Metroid series has been in hell, dude. The last decent Metroid game that wasn't a remake was Prime 3 in 2008. We got that Metroid 2 remake, the mull us over, as they promised us Prime 4, but I'm convinced that thing's vaporware at this point. So how fitting that we all get blindsided by Metroid Dread, a game that's been trying to exist since the DS days. 2021 was the year that Samus finally crawled out of hell and back into the Various suit with a brand new 2D entry that manages to feel up there with the indie masterpieces the series has inspired. Gameplay is more fluid than any Metroid game ever before, with new moves that all focus on getting Samus around as efficiently as possible. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but Metroidvania's leaning towards movement these days is what's finally getting me to like these games, so seeing that spill over into the actual Metroid series finally had me through the freaking roof. There are few Nintendo series as overdue for a banger as Metroid, so it makes me incredibly happy seeing how well this thing's been doing. Hopefully it's enough to get Nintendo off their butt and really try hard to get Prime 4 out of development hell. But even if they do never figure that thing out, we still got the modern 2D Metroid game the series has been begging for years, and that's pretty rad. The king is finally back. After over a decade, an aging Travis Touchdown returns to the scene as Santa Destroy is destroyed by not just aliens, but the top 10 ranked fighters in the entire galaxy. You know what happens next. No More Heroes 3 is a not-so experience, dude. It totally delivers on those over-the-top moments the series is known for. I was really happy to see them bringing back that open world from No More Heroes 1, with way more interesting locations and vastly improved driving. It's way more fun to get around this time, and the variety of new moves and enemies, that all made the combat feel really fierce and fresh, too. All of which is interspliced with anime intros and outros, media critique podcasts, and text-based adventure games. It is a chaotic gorge of pop culture, the shameless teenage lust for action and violence rearranged into something nearly poetic. It's not just junk food, it is junk food being launched out of a cannon onto a canvas, revealing something a little bit more interesting when you take a step back to look at the big picture. It's mixed media, it's madness, it's possibly the most Suda game ever made, and I'm glad in spite of all of the performance issues and a handful of shortcomings, it actually finally happened. So welcome to the Garden of Insanity. Shit.
Number 6.
Dreary environments, cute characters, snappy combat, and a wicked platforming moveset. That is Blue Fire, one of my favorite indie platformers of 2021. I tell you, just getting around in this game is such a blast. You're jumping off walls and you got that mid-air dash. It's one of those games where just moving the character is so much fun that sometimes I found myself having a blast just running in circles. But while the gameplay feels like that Mario 64 platformy goodness, the world is more like an open-ended adventure, like Zelda or Dark Souls, something medieval like that. Dungeons will hide just as many keys and enemies as they will obstacles to navigate. The combat lends itself just as much to the movement as the platforming does, launching yourself at enemies as you zip around to dodge their projectiles, each blow bouncing your momentum off of them like a homing attack. It's a really cute game with a great spooky atmosphere and awesome platforming mechanics, and with optional platforming challenges that are hard as hell, I found myself right at home as I tried again and again for that one perfect run. If you're the kind of person that grew up playing platformers like Mario 64 and then later in your adult years found yourself playing Souls games, this game was made precisely for you.
Number 5.
This is one that I've been following forever, and this past year it finally came out. Eastward. Gorgeous pixel work and careful lighting put together one of the coziest and intriguing 16-bit worlds I've ever explored. They blast you right out of a cannon with this ridiculous anime intro that establishes the premise. We've got this old gruff guy who's living in a colorful but broken world, and one day he stumbles upon this strange facility, discovering a young girl in a big test tube, who he decides to adopt after saving. The world's population is dangerously low, and a strange disease begins to spread across the world. And in spite of it all, we go on a big, goofy adventure to see the world and make some memories, meeting all sorts of weirdos who are all trying to hang on to hope in their own strange way. Connect with strangers over this old NES game, learning secrets from the other kids and keeping them in mind as you play it yourself. It's a really cool way of harnessing that playground rumor kind of feeling. You know, like back when information about games was widely unavailable and had to instead be exchanged via passionate word of mouth.
back when TVs were fat and pixels were chunky. And the presentation on this thing is just out of this world, from the way light reacts to the pixels, to the menus and sounds, to the incredible environments and the fluid bounciness of the character animation. The main gameplay is a really good balance between puzzles, exploration, and good, weighty combat. You'll be switching between the two characters to use a variety of abilities to blow stuff up, knock guys out, and make your way eastward, running from an unexplainable supernatural plague destroying the world. It's been quite a while since I've had a game scratch that kind of itch that games like Mother 3 and Undertale do. I know it's cliche to compare shit to Earthbound, but you know what I mean, like really adventurous games that explore grim things through a lighthearted lens. If that's the kind of mood you're in, then Eastward is something you really should give a shot. Now here's something I really didn't expect, Little Nightmares 2. The game that combined my two favorite genres is back for more, with even more creepy locations that expand the world of the Maw and all the juicy lore that came with it. If there was one thing I wanted to see from this game, it was giving us an even greater variety of locations, and that's exactly what we got going on here. We got a school, apartments, a hospital. You get to see a lot of the world and how it all operates. Seeing them expand the combat a little bit was pretty cool. There's a number of new elements that introduce some nice variety. Puzzles are more inventive and as unsettling as ever. God, this might just be one of my favorite looking games of all time. If every frame of painting was a video game genre, Little Nightmares 2 would be right all the way up there with Inside. Delicately placed lights melt through the fog, wrapping around each object with utmost care, creating incredible scenes that are as good at seamlessly conveying info to the player as they are giving your eyeballs something gorgeous to glaze over. If you love cozy horror games that are really easy to get into, with silent stories that show instead of telling, then Little Nightmares 2 should be right up that little spooky alley of yours. A new Resident Evil game is always the cherry on top whenever we get a good year for horror games, and I cannot believe how much this series has been hitting it out of the park lately. And evidently, that momentum has not slowed down one bit because Resident Evil 8 Village was pretty freaking good. This is a game that, instead of pushing the envelope forward and trying to do something new or inventive like 7 did, Village rearranges familiar elements from the whole series into this one perfect concoction. The Resident Evil series has learned a lot over its 25-year run, and this is where it all pays off. You got the modern first-person gameplay of 7, the chasers of 2 and 3, the shop and inventory of 4, and of course, the campy acting and the old creaky buildings filled with weird puzzles, all reworked and rebalanced into this incredibly polished survival horror experience. Also, one of the very few times a Resident Evil game has actually scared me. The sequence with the doll on the table just brilliantly executed all around. It even has that jungle gym-like level design that you probably remember from the most iconic parts of Resident Evil 4. It had me frantically running around to make the most out of my supplies, popping off quick headshots and putting mines down and stuff. I love it when they keep you on your feet like that. And the village itself was a really cool little hub area to keep coming back to throughout the game. As you gather more equipment, you can uncover more and more of its secrets, with the time of day slowly shifting upon each revisit. Also, very much appreciated the return to focus on more humanoid enemy types. A big part of my survival horror fix comes from popping off those careful headshots, and that just wasn't really as fun with the molded enemies, but now here you got these cloaked zombies swaying left and right, you got these werewolves dancing around in circles, and these giant ogres and shit. I think I can easily say that I enjoyed the enemy variety here a lot more than I did in 7. And with how easily that remake Resident Evil 4 is gonna bounce off of this thing, I am ready for more Resident Evil. That 4 remake's gonna be sick, and 9 might be even sicker. Pinch me, I must be dreaming! Psychonauts 2 defied the impossible this past year. One of the most anticipated and long-awaited sequels of all time, and not only did it finally get made and come out, but it actually lived up to the wait. Picking right up from where we left off, Raz is continuing his journey of becoming a psychonaut, hopping from mind to mind as we unravel a sinister plot that dives right into the history of the psychonauts, Cruller, the legendary Psychic Six, and even Rasputin himself. The dream worlds are absolutely nuts in this game. They gotta be some of the coolest looking levels of all frickin' time, I swear. You're gonna be platforming through some seriously stunning set pieces, surreal hellscapes that harness the fears and memories of each host, even enhancing the narrative with an array of visual storytelling. The writing may not quite hit the same charm as the original, but it's an undeniably endearing tale about healing and understanding, and the way it explores the goofy cast here was incredibly well executed. But weirdly enough, I ended up being most impressed by the frickin' combat. Like, holy crap, dude, this thing recontextualizes the entire moveset as combat abilities, while preserving the focus on the speedy movement. It's something I never see platformers do, and it is hands down the most fun combat I've played in any frickin' platformer ever. And with an expanded, tweaked moveset that has you exploring the world in tons of new ways, Psychonauts 2 combines an excellent narrative with incredibly polished collectathon acrobatics. It is an achievement of the platforming genre and a must freaking play for any fan of platformers.
Number 1.
It's been a long time since a 3D platformer impressed me quite like this. Demon Turf is a 3D indie platformer with tons of attitude, sick-ass visuals, and one of the best platforming movesets since Mario 64. It is the first platformer I've played in ages that not only has really interesting movement options, but also level design that actually takes it all into account in the same way that you would only expect from the very best games in the genre. You could go around the normal way, right? But what if I see something else? What if I could 1, 2, 3, glide, pop out of that, and oh wow, it worked. Like, listen, I've beat Mario 64 80 frickin' times throughout my life because it is the one platformer I keep coming back to, because the movesets focus on physics. It makes it so diverse, so I can actually challenge myself to complete levels in more obtuse and harder to execute ways. I almost make my own level design this way, because like the real fun to me is pulling off a cool series of moves. It's really hard to find 3D platformers that really do a lot of that, and this game really does a lot of that. Demon Turf has a similarly diverse moveset that is also based in physics, and with that comes an incredibly high skill ceiling, and that makes it one of the first real contenders to compete with the king for me, dude. Speedruns for this game are gonna be bonkers, and it kind of achieves that too, while keeping the game quite accessible, with moves that cleverly exchange speed for precision. And don't even get me started on the character designs here. Beebs is such a fresh protagonist, and I guess I mean that in every sense of the word here. She's this little dickhead girl from hell that transforms into cute critters for all of her moves. It's something new, and it's cool as hell. I could not put the frickin' game down, dude. There's so many moves, so many levels, so many collectibles. I'm gonna be going at this thing for quite a while. Demon Turf is an absolute blast. It is one of my favorite 3D platformers of all time. I would easily put it right up there with the very best. I'm dead serious. Please play this game. It is so freaking good, and more people gotta know about it.
Definitely gonna be taking a look at that one sometime this year. Oh man, I gotta break down that moveset. I'm really excited to. Blue Fires too. I actually meant to take a look at Blue Fire this past year, but things got busy, and but this coming year I am planning on talking about a lot of 3D indie platformers, so don't you worry, I will be getting to that. But yeah, a pretty good year for video games. A lot of long-awaited sequels to the underdogs. It's a miracle any of them freaking happened. I feel like the state of AAA video games is just worsening with every year. Like, at this point it really feels like there's only like a handful of studios that actually care about making good games and actually will put out something worth playing. So I think we really do owe it to the indies for spending years of their lives making stuff that's actually worth playing and interesting and cool and fun, So yeah, with all that said, let me know what games you guys played this past year, new or old, and more importantly, let me know if there's any 3D indie platformer games you think I should take a look at this year. That's actually how I found out about Demon Turf to begin with, is that you guys told me. That has been the absolute best perk of this job, is having this big comment section to sift through and find all of these interesting and cool games I probably otherwise never would have found. So thank you guys for that. I think it's high time I flip that switch and get them all back out that way. But yeah, I hope you guys have a happy new year. Remember to be safe and wear a mask, be kind to others, be patient with yourself, and take care of yourself. I mean that. Everything suck dick right now.
Top 10 burgers. Number 10, a burger with ketchup. Number 9, a burger with ketchup and mustard. Number 7, a ketchup burger with mustard. Number 6, burger ketchup mustard with mayo. Number 5, the lettuce pickle supreme. Number 4, burger from A&W. Number 3, a burger from KFC. Number 2, the biggest burger. And number 1, knuckle sandwich, boy.